Hey there, Techno-Evangelist here to talk about another gadget that's often in my bag. For the last few videos, I've been talking about the RAV-Power File Hub. This is an amazing device that packs a Wi-Fi access point, an SD card reader, a battery, and a hard drive all into one small package. But sometimes you don't need the SD card reader. And sometimes you just want a great travel router. Now, one of the best I've ever used is the GL-AR750S-Ext from GL-iNet. It doesn't quite roll off the tongue, so their pet name for it is the Slate. The pet name for my channel is Techno-Evangelist. That's also my Twitter handle and on every other social. So click on subscribe below to continue watching my videos. This thing is quite amazing. It's just a touch bigger than a deck of cards and weighs about 100 grams. On the back here, we have 3 gigabit Ethernet jacks, 1 for WAN uplink and 2 for the LAN, though that's configurable. Next to that is a USB 2 port. This can be used to plug in a 3G modem or a hard drive or maybe even a printer, though I wouldn't use this for any kind of permanent installation. Next to that is the power USB port. It's important to note that this has no power on its own. There is no battery, so you'll need to provide power. I usually carry this 10,000 milliamp hour battery in my bag, and this thing will consume about 300 milliamps in an hour. So you should get a good amount of use on very little power. And if you have your laptop, you could power it from the USB ports on your laptop. Over on this side, we have a single micro SD card slot that can take a 128 gigabyte card if you want onboard storage. Not so great for copying files off of your camera, but it's good to have that onboard storage. On the other side, there is a switch that can be used to quickly enable one of a few different functions. And then there's a reset button. You can hold that to reset either reset just the password or reset all the things that are on this device. And on the front are 3 LED lights, power, 2G, and 5G. And then, of course, there are these 2 cute little antennae. So just from that tour, you know that it supports gigabit Ethernet and 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. The fact that it's got AR750 in the product name tells you that it supports 400 megabits per second on the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi and 333 megabits per second on the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi. But it's so much more than that. It supports something called OpenWRT. That's a reference to the WRT54G wireless routers that Linksys made back in 2004. They built the firmware of that device with code licensed under the GNU GPL, which required them to open source it. Who knows if they knew about that ahead of time. And then folks started modifying the firmware to allow them to do all sorts of cool things. Fast forward to now, and OpenWRT is included in many devices like this GL-AR750. You could load up an ad blocker, for instance. So every device that connects to the internet via the GL-AR750 would benefit from that ad blocker. You could add speed tests to always check how fast your connection is. You can set it up as a Pixie server. You can add Tor so that all the devices connected can surf anonymously. You can set up ShadowSock's proxy or WireGuard. You can SSH into it. Now, if none of that made sense to you, you still benefit from a great little travel router with a fantastically useful UI. You know what else has a good UI? YouTube. There's a super useful button below where you can subscribe to this channel. Go ahead and click it. Well, one of the features of the router that are most interesting to me, especially after my experience with the RAV-Power File Hub, is around sharing your hotel Wi-Fi. On the RAV-Power, there's a good chance you won't be able to share your hotel Wi-Fi because of how it asks you for your name and room number. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. One of the more common ways for that login to work is you fill in the details and then the local hotel Wi-Fi router records your device's MAC address. This has nothing to do with Macintosh, but rather Media Access Control Address. Every device ever made that connects to a TCP/IP network has a MAC address, and it's used to get the information you requested back to you. After you connect, perhaps from your phone's MAC address is recorded. But then you can go into your GL-AR750 and tell it not to use its MAC address, but to clone your phone's MAC address. This is a really neat way to trick the hotel Wi-Fi into thinking that the GL-AR750 has filled in the form as you. Now, a couple weeks ago, I was sitting in the speaker lounge at AWS reInvent, and I had a hard time connecting my Mac to the speaker Wi-Fi. So I connected to the GL-AR750 and connected that to the speaker Wi-Fi. Why did that work and not my Mac? I have no idea, but it did, and it let me get on with getting ready for my session. So that's the GL-AR750S-Ext from GL-iNet. I think this is super cool, and I'm excited to have it in my bag. It's great if you need a simple UI to configure everything in a travel router, and it's even better if you want to SSH in and tweak the heck out of it. Now, if you don't need gigabit or 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi, but you do need a travel router, you might consider this even smaller GL-MT300N V2. It's half the size and weighs almost nothing. Oh, and at the beginning, I mentioned that the alternate name for the GL-AR750S-Ext is the Slate. GL-iNet has names for each of their devices. This one is the Mango. On their website, they also mention Spitz and Shadow and Domino. Well, I have a hard time calling this Slate, but then again, I probably won't be saying GL-AR750S-Ext all too often either. Now, this is a bit more expensive than the File Hub. Is it worth it? Well, it has 3 gigabit Ethernet ports, and that's pretty great. And if a good UI is important to you, then this has a beautiful UI. It has OpenWRT built in as well, and OpenVPN. OpenVPN is great because you could just set up the VPN on this one box, and now everything else that connects to the internet via this little device is on that same VPN. So it's a simpler and yet far more complex device. It's more streamlined for those that need it, and far more malleable for those who want that. You can mount a drive from its USB port, and if you're interested in transfer speeds, I can look at that in a future video. In fact, I'm going to look at a few other features in upcoming videos, so make sure you subscribe to find out about those in the coming days and weeks. Thanks so much for watching, and goodbye.